Welcome to Real Voices of Recovery. I'm your host, Justin. The idea of this podcast got started because I believe that we all have a story that needs to be shared with each other to bring light and hope into our lives, and that recovery is possible. And it takes a tribe of community of others, of like-minded people to make that possible. So welcome to Real Voices of Recovery. Good morning and welcome to episode 4 of Real Voices of Recovery. This morning we're here with Stephanie, and some of you might be familiar with Stephanie. She joined us during the last episode when John shared his story. And I say good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Good. So we'll roll right into it. Kind of tell us about, where'd you grow up?
Okay. So I grew up actually in East Stroudsburg. I was born there, and I lived there till I was in 7th grade. I guess I moved down here for 8th grade. Kind of lived in like the boonies, I grew up, I really enjoyed growing up there. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents and a really great childhood, a lot of good memories. I would go hunting with my grandparents and, do all the outside fun things. I played softball, and I must say so myself, I was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The fun thing was when they used to put like the kids in the newspaper, so I would always look for myself in the newspaper. And then I moved down to Bethlehem. My parents separated when I was, I want to say 6, and I still remember that day when my dad left. I remember what I was wearing, what I was eating. That was really rough on me. My sister was very little, and then my mom had met my stepdad, who, he's still around today. They're married, and so we moved down here to Bethlehem. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm from, and I'm here.
Well, good. So what was it like growing up? I mean, did you have a lot of friends?
So when I lived in East Stroudsburg, I did. I had a lot of good friends. I had when you grow up, you have the neighborhood friends. When I moved down here, I struggled to fit in. It was a lot of people making fun of me. I was heavier when I was younger, so I really struggled with self-image. And sometimes I think that is what really... So where I was really starting to be hard on myself, and then growing up, and my mom and my stepdad, the families combined, so my stepsister was just beautiful. She was beautiful, and so to me, looking at her, and she was older, and she just very well known, she grew up here, so that to me was like the start of, getting down on myself, and almost like a downhill spiral from there. My stepbrother and I are like the same age, so he kind of introduced me to some people when I moved down here, but I always struggled to just find where I belong, kind of thing. I played softball down here, but I didn't really play, like my passion wasn't there. So as soon as my whole environment switched, I felt like the light kind of went out. And as I got older, I started to get curious, like with drinking and different things like that. I was always giving my mom a hard time, whether it was anything. We would just constantly go at it. Looking back on it today, I know why she was doing the things she was doing. But of course, at that time, as a young girl, you're arguing with your mom all the time. My dad was not there. And then he got remarried, and we didn't click. So that, to me, because I spent so much time with my dad when we were younger, and then he's just gone. And I think between that, moving to a new town, having new siblings in the house, everything just started to change. So I think that's like, I don't want to say the root, but just the basis of where my life started to kind of go downhill, where I started to really be hard on myself. I guess I started to realize, like, myself, that, like, oh shit, things are not what they used to be, I guess. I would try to hang out with the people who were really not good people to hang out with, I just really was not, I was nasty. I used to be very fun, very, like, you could see the light in my eyes, and it just diminished. And the first time I remember going with one of the neighborhood girls, she was older, and we went in the woods and just started drinking. And I came home, and my mom, I remember, she wasn't, I don't say she was upset, but I think she realized too then, like, things are just not okay. My mom was obviously a single mom for a while, and she went to the police academy, and then she worked uniform, and now she is a sergeant. So when you have a mom or multiple family members who are in the law enforcement or doing whatever, in that particular industry, you feel like you have to be a certain way, or people look at you and you feel that you have to be, on your toes at all times. So that was always in the back of my mind, what I'm doing is going to affect her. That was very stressful, like, on me, worrying about, well, even really just other people looking in, do I want to be friends with her, or, things like that. So that, I think, was something when moving down here. So you're coming in, people know, your mom's a cop or whatever the case may be. But as I got older, I learned she's amazing at what she does, and she just is great. So I always had a great person to look up to, and I think I always felt like I was letting her down. And I wish I would have, now looking back, I would have kind of went to her to help her understand me a little bit more, because I think when everything all said and done, she kind of looks back like, where did I go wrong? But it wasn't her, it was just my way of thinking, and I was so hard on myself. Yeah, so I guess when things really started to get really rough in my life, I moved out with my significant other at the time, and I was 19 or 20, young, still in college.
You started going to college.
I did.
Where did you go to college? What did you study?
So I actually stayed local. I went to Northampton Community College, and I went originally I just went in as I wasn't undecided, but I always knew I wanted to teach, so I ended up doing early childhood education. When I was there, I actually, while I was going to school, I worked in the children's center that was there, and I loved it. The passion that I have for children is just out of this world. It is something, if you could put me in a classroom, I will excel. And that is one thing that I could say with confidence. When you teach, you have to keep it's called a PDR, professional development record. So you keep everything that you've ever done, all certificates, all trainings, the whole nine. So that was one thing that I was so proud to show John and my family, of course, and that's something that I still have to this day, because I did so much and I worked so hard. When I moved out, I did graduate college, obviously, and I was really proud of myself. I was the first one in the family to graduate, so that was a huge thing for me. But when I was I felt like moving out, I don't want to say gave me freedom, but I guess it did, where I just drank heavily, a lot. And I would black out, but I was fun. It's not like I was an angry drunk, but I was just obviously drinking a lot. And the person that I moved out with, he just was very, I think we were young love in a sense, but he just didn't know how to handle me. and I just started to go down. My family could see it a little bit, and that's kind of where my story begins.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like I could walk all over him, and he just, wouldn't say anything, and that to me is awful.
So that's where things started to kind of
Yes.
snowball for you.
Yep. I just then, I knew somebody, and, I just took I went up a level, and I just started using prescription pills, and I would go and live elsewhere, and he would cover for me, and I just, it still kills me to this day to ever treat somebody like that, and I feel like that and what I've done to him molded me into the person that I am now with John. And now I've learned that I can't treat people like that. And I'm very grateful for him, and he and John have been able to communicate, and I just feel like I learned a lot from that relationship. But that's where everything, really, I just went, when I get into something, I like 0 to 100. So
I get it. We're,
it was bad.
all in or all out.
Yes.
Real quick though, you said prescription.
So I used the 30s, the blues, and I just dove in head first. And I moved out of where I was living into another place, and that's all we did. And in this point in my life, the only person that I knew that was using was this particular person. So it was almost like he was all I had kind of thing, and then the rest of my life, so it was almost like I was living 2 different lives, really. But I maintained my job for a long time. I went to work, I still did family events, but my family knew. They knew that something was going on, and, where I was the person that I was living with prior to, he would say I was still living there, and it was a big mess. And I didn't realize, I guess, what it would feel like to go through withdrawal until the first time we didn't have anything. That was the most awful thing. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and I feel like you don't until you really until you go through it, really, honestly,
I think it's important that you say that too, because me too, very similar experience, and I think a lot of times people have this misconception that you knew what you were doing, and that you have an idea of like, hey, this isn't what everyone does, but until you really experience it, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. You don't think about what comes with it. You're like, I like this, it feels good, it's making me feel, I felt more confident, and I think that is what I was searching for. The confidence in myself, where I could look in a mirror and just be like, okay, this is who you are, kind of thing. I just realized that my life was just falling apart. And then we couldn't get the 30s one day, and heroin became available. And at first I wasn't sure. I asked the person I was with, I was like, is it like the same thing? I just truly did not know anything about it. And they were like, yeah, it's the same thing, it's just cheaper. I'm like, let's do it. So I, because I didn't want to feel how I was feeling. Anything that would take that feeling away, that's what I wanted. So I went ahead and we used that, and now I was not an IV user at first. We would do a lot of awful, awful things that you in your sober right mind would never think to do. Taking from your family, taking from people's homes. It's terrible what it makes.
What's the statute of limitations on those things? Well, that's what it does, though. It takes you places without your permission.
Yes.
And your nevers become your daily activities.
Yes. And even sometimes when I tell my story and tell people what I've been through, I get embarrassed, and I'm embarrassed to say, like, I've done some of these things. And, you know, the one thing that taking from your own family is the most gut-wrenching thing, the most gut-wrenching feeling that you can have. And I live with that every day. Now, I've forgiven myself, and that took a lot, but it makes you somebody who as I sit here today, I am nothing like I was back then. I don't treat humans that way. I don't, I don't judge. Judgment was a huge part of me. So to fast forward a little bit, I was using the heroin, and then the person I was with, actually, he ended up going to prison. Because I only knew him, and I knew like a couple people, I knew it was time for me to go. My mom helped me. She went with me every step of the way. And I went to Lehigh County Center for Recovery. And it was a great experience. They were great. But for me, it was terrible. Being sick with another person in the room, it was horrible. One fun fact about me is I've never smoked a cigarette in my life, ever. And so when I went there, people kept opening the door, like, hey, you want to go out for a cigarette? You want to go out for a cigarette? And like, I think that's when the judgment began, because I think they thought that I was better. Once people laid eyes on me, they were just like, what the hell are you doing here?
People judging you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So as soon as I walked into that rehab, a lot of people are like, one thing that I walked in, with matching luggage. Now, the only reason I had that, this is a huge part of my thing, because it stays in my mind. It was gifted to me for something that was in my life, so I was actually living out of those suitcases. And they were like, why do you have people are coming in with trash bags? Because that's what they had. And they did not want to be around me. They thought that I was better than them. But once I left, I think I opened their eyes, because I'm no different. I am no different than you. I hurt the same way. I think the same way. It was a really good experience for myself to learn that I'm strong and I can go through rehab and get through those things. They had to actually remove a girl from the treatment center because to them, I don't know if like I was just somebody that they could just walk all over. I don't really know what the issue was. I think there was some mental illness there. That's fine. I don't know judgment, obviously, but they did remove her because my safety was a concern. But I just think that people just, I don't know, it just goes back to judgment, really.
Right. Was it the only time you went to treatment?
I did. So I only went to treatment.
One and done?
One time. Yes, one time. I left treatment then. I graduated. I was so proud of myself. But then I came home and I went into IOP, actually. It didn't take long for me to use again. And I started using IV. I went right to shooting IV because actually we did get somebody in the treatment center did bring things in, and I did, in the very beginning, as soon as I came out of detox, I did use in the treatment center.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that I wish I never would have done, because that introduced me to IV use.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got out, it was just like, I want to know more. So my mind just started going. And it got bad. So then, as I'm in IOP, I'm using, and actually that's when John came into my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then started using. He went away then for treatment, but I was still using. I was using dope. I was using coke. And it just, I felt like after treatment I got worse in my journey.
So it progressed even farther.
Yeah.
So, like, real briefly, how long did it go on after treatment before maybe things started to change for you?
Well, probably until I got pregnant. And that, to me, was done. Done. I need to get my shit together. My passion for children just kicks in. I will not take me out of it. My child can't go through it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was on methadone while I was pregnant. A lot of people have judgment against that. Methadone for me saved my life. So actually, I have had both of my children on methadone, but the first one it was a learning experience. Everything went great. They prepped me for what will happen afterwards. So our son was then in the NICU. It was like weeks, about 3 weeks. But he really did great. He did great. I stayed there that whole time because as a mom, you're looking at your son and I'm thinking, I did that to him. And that is something that I had to live with. That I put him, my choices, put my son there. And the nurses were like, you need to go home. It's okay. Get your rest. Come back. And I did. I went home, but I would stay from like 9 a.m. till 7 at night. And we had this like little Mamaroo thing. We brought it in. I just wanted to take that pain away from him so bad. But he was okay. He did great. He came home. He's almost 9, and he is the most amazing kid in the whole world.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how you got through that? Because I know a lot of mothers have experienced the same thing.
So it was hard. When Jace came home, I did slip up a little bit, and that's so hard. And then John actually had to pick it up. And it didn't last long. And I just went off because I was so stressed and worried about everything, and you have all of that stress on your back and you want the best for your son. Everything that you have done your whole life or your whole using whatever, while you were using, and I just wanted to be the best mom I could be. And I don't know what made me do that. I don't know. We had somebody, in our house, and he was like family to my husband, and he took our iPad. And when he took our iPad, he took every memory I have of me being pregnant. And that was it. And it like brought me back to reality, like, what the hell are you doing? Get your shit together now. And never again did I ever pick up anything. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I do nothing. And thank God for John, because when I tell you I fell off hard, I couldn't parent. I couldn't pick my son up. I couldn't, because my mind was so involved in that drug. And that is so scary to think that other moms that are going through that, and ones that maybe not have been so lucky to get it so quickly. One thing I learned in rehab is I didn't have kids when I went through rehab, but there were so many moms in there who had kids at home, and I can't even imagine having a child at home while I'm going to rehab. It's a great thing that you're going and working on yourself, but I just beat myself up over my son being in that NICU. But all it took was him to take all those memories from me, and it was like, get your shit right.
Now, how long ago was that?
That was my first son, so that was almost 9 years ago.
Let's talk a little bit about what it's been like for the past 9 years and what your life is like today.
So it's been truly great. We have normal stressors, and I will take those normal stressors any day. We have our ups and downs, but I'll tell you what, learning and growing with the person that you love and the person that you have so much in common with, and that you, even before kids, before anything, that you just have so much with, it is beautiful. Beautiful. And being able to raise your kids and have a man with you all that way, and to watch him grow, it's just amazing.
So it sounds like, recovery brings you guys close.
Yeah.
And the connection, family, helps you heal.
Yeah, it does. It really does. My family was always in the back of my mind, so when people look at me and think, oh my goodness, your family, they are in law enforcement, whatever, I was struggling so bad. And in turn, I could have cost them their career if I did the wrong thing, or, if I did So that always sat with me. I think I was judged a lot as I was growing up, and which in turn, made me harder on myself. But I think that never judge a book by how they look, by its cover, whatever the saying is. But I think whatever way your recovery looks, how you get clean, you do methadone, you don't, Suboxone, whatever it is, give yourself that break and put yourself on top for once. Like, take care of yourself, because without you taking care of yourself, I learned without me taking care of me, I couldn't take care of my babies. I can't help my husband. I can't do those things if I'm not good. And I think that is my biggest thing. I'm still learning that. To this day, I'm still learning not to be so hard on myself. John tells me all the time, pick your chin up, because you're okay. And I'm very grateful to have the support system that I do have. So whatever that looks like for anybody else,
That's beautiful. So teamwork.
Absolutely.
So I think the last thing I want to add, is there a message you have for the mothers out there who maybe are going through what you experienced?
I think if I had to tell any mom, it's to take a deep breath, take a step back, and things are going to be okay. Take it one step at a time, truly, because if you're just like, oh my goodness, and you start getting all stressed out, it doesn't work. What you did is what you did, and accept that. And now, but what you do with what you've done I feel like is important. So what make it better. However that looks for you, you got it. You got this. Your babies are so important, which every mom, knows. But I think take life 1 minute at a time. That's just what worked for me. So, but there are moms who do reach out to me I don't want to say on a daily basis, but they do. They reach out and they ask, how do you do this? Or how do you and John make this work? It takes a lot of hard work.
A lot.
Communication. Communication is big, and trust. Trust is something that John and I have worked through since day one. When you meet somebody, you never know if it's going to be real. But I'll tell you what, as soon as we knew it was real, he was the biggest blessing. So I think that John really plays such a big part in my story, and I think I play a big part in his as well. But as far as the moms go, I just think coming together, I've learned surrounding myself with mamas who have been through similar situations. It's just good.
This big thing about moral injury. A lot of people might not have heard about it yet, and this is like a lot of times people get diagnosed with PTSD, but really what they're suffering with is moral injury. That they're undeserving of good things, that they're a bad person, they've done too many bad things to come back.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're proof that that's not true.
100%.
We can come back.
Yeah, 100%. I think one thing for myself is I remember once I started to come to, thinking about just my immediate family, like they never left my side. And I am so grateful for my mom, my sister, and my stepdad. Had I not had their support, I don't know what I would have done. And sometimes I feel, that's why when people, I'm always here, you just find that one friend that you can confide in, just have somebody, because it's so important. It's so important, and that goes back to being able to trust. You have to learn to trust, and, so recovery is a lot of work, but it's good work. So, yeah.
Beautiful. I would like to thank all of you for listening, and remember to always keep up the good fight.